People, I am officially excited. I am super excited today because we are starting a series of videos about live updates. Do you know what live updates is? Have you tried it? Probably not, and that's why you should also be excited. Thing is, other game engine called Unity, they have things called asset bundles. So live updates is like asset bundles but actually work. And Johan actually implemented that, and you'll be seeing him a lot. Because live updates, and also because particles, you ask for videos about particles, and it's also him. So
that's me.
Greet Johan. So Johan, live update feature is been out in a while. It was designed and created for King teams, but obviously available for indies, but they haven't really tried it, I think.
Yeah, we released the first iteration for GDC last year, was the first MVP, and we released like feature complete version for just before the summer.
So what changed? What have we been working on, or what you have been working on for this year within live updates?
Yeah, the version that we released before the summer was basically an expansion of what live update feature could already do. It was basically possible to switch out more content in your game by using the manifest, which I guess we'll go into more in this video or later videos.
But so live update is a feature that allows you to add content to a live game without uploading a new client, so-called.
Yeah, it's basically, in its simplest form, you can ship a pretty small bundle of your game. And as the player progresses, for example, you can send more and more content out to the game client without having to do a full app store.
But let's define content. So can you send, well, obviously you can send new art, like graphics, animations, sprites, new logic.
Sounds, so you can do Lua scripts,
Lua,
for example.
Don't tell Apple about it.
Well, it's basically any resource in the game, so that's
Is there anything you cannot send to a game that is up there on the App Store?
No, I guess it's because live update works on collections, basically collection proxy. So anything you can put in a collection can be added with live update to your game, basically.
Another question that goes next to this. So if you can add content, can you remove content? Say if you ship 10 new levels each week and users go through these levels, it's easy, like, okay, but can I remove some of the levels I shipped, whatever, 6 months ago or 4 months ago to spare some storage?
Currently not, but it's on a to-do list that I have to be able to purge like local resources. So today you can download resources for a collection proxy, and it's a feature that we'd like to see pretty soon, where you'll be able to unload and remove resources that have previously been loaded with live updates.
Oh, I'm super excited about this feature. I mean, like, imagine your game is always young, always 20 megabytes or like 50 megabytes. You add new content and your game is still only 50 megabytes. So when users see, oh, my iPhone is full, like, what do you remove from it? Your app doesn't never make it to the top 10 of storage abusers. So that's another reason why I'm so excited. So okay, live update. How do they start with live update? What do they have to prepare?
Well, we have a pretty extensive manual here on the web page. So you just go to manuals, you scroll down to the platform section in the bottom here, and at the bottom is the live update.
Yeah, there is lots of text to read.
Yeah, lots of text. So we can maybe go through a bit.
Yeah, and maybe like a short summary, just so they can understand the scope. Like, is it dramatically hard to start using live updates?
It's very easy to get going with it and to start experimenting with it. But I mean, you're still releasing content to a live game, so it should still pass through all the QA and testing that you would do for a live release. So it basically starts in the editor, because the live update works on collections. So if you have a collection that you load with a proxy in Defold, we have a setting down here in the properties which you can exclude this collection.
What if we switch to default editor and just see that these buttons are not fake?
So here's a small demo for the live update feature, and we have a few collection proxies here. So level 1 is not excluded, so that's going to be shipped with a bundle that you send to the App Store. And then level 2 here and level 3 are excluded.
Right. So with this checkboxes is everything you need to kind of basically you're already using live updates. You just check this checkbox and that's it. You don't have to prepare the content in any other way.
No. This is the only.
Right. And obviously level 2 and level 3 has textures and sounds and many other resources that might be device specific or platform specific. So for example, on iOS the textures are PVRTC, on Android are different format.
It's very agnostic in that kind of way. It doesn't care what platform.
What happens? I mean, like I want my textures be PVRTC on iOS when I make this live updates bundles or chunks. How do I set this up?
Because what happens is if you go to your regular bundle dialog and you select Mac OS X, for example, there's a checkbox here saying publish live update content.
Right, and that's when the editor determines, okay, so in this bundle, like let's call it a client plus bundles, I guess. Like in this example, level 2 and level 3, would they end up in a single bundle or in two different bundles?
No, they would end up in the same zip file basically, or there's different options that we also have Amazon Web Service integration. So we go live update settings. So if you have an Amazon S3 bucket, for example, you can input your credentials here, your bucket, and you can select Amazon here. And this basically tells what will happen when you have the publish checkbox checked when you do the bundling. So with these settings, all the excluded resources, so in this example, the resources for level 2 and 3,
they will end up in zip file,
uploaded to the server.
Can you specify on server? Like many developers are keen on keeping stuff on something like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the alternative is to output it to a zip file locally. So if you do that, you will specify here where you want the resources to end up, and then it's just a zip file. You can host it wherever you like, on an FTP server, on your own web server, locally on disk. It's totally up to you how you want to host your live update content.
The manifest thing, the public key and private key, what are these?
It's basically a part of the live update feature if you want to switch out the manifest as well, which allows even more flexibility. This is a security measure. So the public and private key are used for signing the manifest.
Oh, right.
To make sure
your client comes with a manifest, and then when you stream in new resources, someone evil may stream into your game his resources with malicious code, and that's the way to.
Yeah, so we sign all the manifests. So when you try to load in a manifest into your game, we check that the signatures match with what we expect.
Yeah, so there is a decent video on our channel called App Manifest when you go through all the manifests. I think this is the manifest that we did not cover in that video.
Yep.
So this
lots of manifests.
This is a new manifest.
Yep.
I hear the excitement on the other side of the YouTube. So what exactly this manifest is? It kind of lists the files, like the structure?
The manifest basically has a list of all the resources in the game, excluded or not. And it has dependencies between resources.
Okay.
So for example, we use the manifest if we want to check what resources a collection needs to be able to load. What resources does that collection need?
Right, and it is per game. So like when you ship a thin client with a small amount of content, like there is a manifest that knows only about the content that we shipped. But when we add like a stream new content to that game, the manifest get replaced, or would suddenly the app have two manifests?
The manifest actually holds a list of all the resources, excluded or not, in the game. But since it holds the list and all the dependencies, switching out the manifest means that you can switch out basically all the resources in the game, basically, and the dependencies between them also. It's if you want to add resources that wasn't known when you did the publish to the App Store.
Yes.
So the slim variant of live update, you do a App Store release, and you know beforehand what content you want to push. And if you do that and you don't change the content, you don't need to update the manifest, because the manifest information is up to date. It knows all the resources that you're going to push.
This manifest magic, live update manifest magic, what does user have to do to not mess everything up? Like any specific magic with manifests? Do we need this a dedicated live update manifest video?
Maybe. I mean, there's you have to be careful when you do it and test stuff extensively before you push anything out. But it's not that complicated once you get your head around it.
It's generated automatically.
Yeah.
So like as a default user, I don't have to edit manifest myself.
No, the manifest is outputted along with all the other resources in the same zip bundle.
So I don't have to edit it manually overall.
No. It's outputted along with any other live update resources. You get a manifest that matches it.
I see. Okay. Then we don't need a dedicated video on the manifest. So the supported versions, like what does it mean? And since that's just a string, right?
Yeah, it's basically what engine versions you know that you support with this manifest. Since data formats can change for every release.
Theoretically, at least.
Yeah, theoretically.
Practically, we don't do this.
Well, we can change our internal formats, for example. So we are backwards compatible in that sense that you can download a new editor, open a new project, and build and run it.
Yeah.
But say that you have live update resources built with an older engine, it won't be compatible with maybe a manifest that's generated with a later engine. So here you can be as careless or as careful as you want to be with what engines you use. So
do you have to list all the versions that you support? So you ship with 1.36 and then in half a year there is whatever 1.48. So do you have to list all the versions from 1.36 to 1.48?
Well, I mean, it's you as a developer who choose which version of Defold you ship with. And you should be pretty careful when updating a default version, for example, and you should know what versions you're running on maybe. So it should be a simple thing to keep track of.
So these supported versions is something that developer may or may not use. Like it's just a safeguard feature. It's not that live updates are dependent on the string.
No, I mean if you these supported versions will be embedded in the manifest. Like this manifest that you're trying to load supports these engine versions.
Right.
And at runtime, when you try to load this manifest, we will check the engine that we're trying to load this into. Is that in the list of the supported versions that this manifest supports?
So good, we're done with the live update settings. We know the checkbox, we've seen the settings. What is next?
Yep. So
any code to write?
Yes, there's some code. The API is pretty slim since we leave the hosting and the downloading of the content up to the user. So yeah, we covered the settings, and here's the scripting part then. So you've excluded your collection proxies, you've made your bundle, you're hosting your resources on S3 or web server or whatever mode you like to host your resources on. So we're going into default scripting now.
Yeah, so the user has to implement his own way of adding the excluded content back to the client.
Exactly. And we have a few API calls here to help out with that. The first one, I guess, is in the collection proxy namespace called missing resources. And it basically lets you ask a collection proxy, before I load you, are you missing any resources? And if it's missing any resources, it will return a list of those missing resources that it needs to, the resources it is missing to be loaded. So in this example, we iterate over all those resources and attempt to download them one by one. And in this example, it's a basic HTTP GET request. So we download each resource, and for each resource that we successfully download, we make a call into the resource namespace called resource store resource.
And I guess that's going to get stored in user storage.
Exactly. So on desktop platform, it's going to be the app data folder. On mobile devices, it's going to be somewhere on local storage.
This code looks platform agnostic to me. So theoretically, it could run on iOS, Android, HTML5.
Yep.
It's just like obviously the data storage path gonna be different.
Yeah, I mean in the engine we handle all the platform specific like Android has a separate API to write the local storage,
Right.
as does iOS and platforms, but we handle all that like
So
under the hood. in the
Pretty
engine.
much as a user, like any user can just get this code and pretty much that's a good start.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a good
exactly.
start.
Yeah, you don't have to care about platforms in that sense. Yeah, and that's basically it.
Any part of this code that is super tricky and may require additional attention?
Not really. I mean, if a resource fails to download, you want some logic to retry again maybe and handle that gracefully in some way, but it's not different than any other HTTP call you might make.
Right. We spoke that the engine outs the zip file with that additional resources, and then in this code we download that zip file to user storage, and then we load the zip file onto the client. Like we add, like what happens to the content of the zip file? Do they get extracted somewhere? Do they get merged with our game, or do
so after the user has bundled and excluded resources and get the zip file out,
yeah,
Defold kind of takes his hands off and say, here's your resources, do with them what you like. The resources can't be on a zip file on a server, they have to be unpacked. So what we do here is like basically we do a HTTP call for each resource. So they should be unpacked on the server. They're like, brrp. So here's an example where I have local, like these are all the resources for Britzel's sample.
Right, so we don't store the zip file itself on the server.
No. The zip file is just a convenience to give the user one file.
It
like
has
here,
to be unarchived.
Yeah, it has to be unpacked on the server.
And we're getting each by each piece.
Exactly. So we download the resources one by one.
Right. And what happens to the resources that we download to our client? Are they stored in the user data folder, or do they get copied somewhere?
No, they get stored in like app-specific local storage. Yeah.
Like for a while, or I guess that's always dependent.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on Android you can go in and on an app and like clear local storage. Yeah. It's that same storage, basically.
I see. Right. And when you're gonna implement that remove things feature, it's gonna be exactly that kind of.
Yeah, it hasn't been designed yet, but I'm guessing like we have this collection proxy missing resources. That API might be collection proxy dot purge resources, and then input what proxy to purge the resources for. Right.
So there is a way to know. I mean, since like we're downloading one by one these pieces of data, and they I mean, those are just hashes, I assume.
Yeah.
So is there a way to know which hash belongs to where?
No, not really. No. But it should be. You shouldn't need to know that information, I guess, because you outputted all the resources you want to exclude.
Right.
And you don't need to know the hash, like.
So the collection proxy takes care of that.
Yeah.
So you don't need to map things.
Instead of using string the paths, which would be easier to read for a human, we use hashes, and since we don't need to know what hash is what resource really, we're just interested in what resources are missing and then downloading them. We don't really care what resources.
I see. Okay. Anyway, this seems and sounds quite easy to me. Any potential problems with using live updates? Any I know limitations or performance optimizations that you have in mind immediately, like do's and don'ts, so that users don't have to discover the bad things themselves?
Yeah, one especially when dealing with swapping out the manifest, it's important to remember that you can't change resources that are bundled with the game. You can only make modifications to resources that are loaded with live update.
Right. So whatever you ship with the client, that's it.
Yeah, that has to be. And you can always, if you mess up or want to change something, you can always do a full App Store upgrade to like reset the state.
Right.
And then you can.
But this is indeed like once you ship a broken manifest to a live game, that is it.
Well, you can still do a full App Store update.
You have to update the client then if you mess up.
Yeah, and that's why it's. I mean, it's a very powerful feature, but it's. You have to be careful as a developer when implementing it also, because it is so powerful, and you can swap out content. And,
I see. Okay, but anyway, this looks easy to me. I wonder why our users haven't, benefited.
Can I maybe show the small demo that Bjorn made?
Let's do it.
So Britzel made a small demo for GDC showing this feature. So let's see. So this is an example that we looked at in the editor. Let's see if I can make it to the end of the level. So this was the first level that was shipped with the game, and level 2 and level 3 were not shipped with the game, but are instead hosted on Amazon S3. So we completed the level. We see that to be able to load level 2, we are missing 63 resources.
Is this code, this sample app, the source code, is the source of this available somewhere?
Yes, I think it's on Björn's GitHub, the public GitHub, Britzels.
Yeah, I'll link it down so you'll click, 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 click.
So let's see. So if we restart this game now and make it through the first level again.
You're much better than I had played in this game. I just remember, I like when I demoed this a while ago, I had to restart like 5 times.
So now we're done with level 1. We already loaded level 2 previously, so now we can just go ahead and play it immediately. And I mean, this is an extreme example. You can do this in the background when the player progresses. It doesn't need to be this explicit
version.
Yeah. And the code used for this is basically what is in the manuals. So we do the collection proxy missing resources, small HTTP request.
I guess it's either async loading, or does it just happen on a thread, or does the engine pause, stop whatever it's doing?
No, HTTP requests are asynchronous. They're on a separate thread. So the downloading of the resources is asynchronous from the main thread.
So you can still show some animations, something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like have the menu.
Yeah.
When it's loading.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good for a start. I wonder what we have not covered yet today.
I guess what we could talk more about, because it's a more advanced feature, is the swapping out of the manifest. Because this example was basically all the resources were known when the bundle was pushed out, and we haven't changed them. And swapping out the manifest is two more API calls, maybe a couple more API calls, and a bit more consideration when implementing it.
Right. Do you think this feature is suitable for large games? I mean, the games of king scale, the games that you have to operate throughout years, like 2 years, 3 years. Would it be still easy, to remember? Okay, so this level goes to this bundle, this level goes to this bundle.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I don't think it's different than architecting any larger system. It's pretty similar to all the pitfalls that you have designing any large system.
So keep your Excel file saying, this is, or like a map, or like a whiteboard, a very precious whiteboard.
And I mean, I guess it's suitable. There's been a lot of talk recently, like bundle size on the App Store affects the number of downloads you get. And this could be a good way to keep your initial bundle size down on the App Store, for example.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing instant messenger games, stuff like that.
Right. Okay. So as a roundup, so all the textures and platform-dependent resources, you don't care about them. Default converts the resource to the format of your target platform when you bundle, because both the client and the bundles get created when you click this publish button. The release checkbox, is it right release checkbox, or do you need to create the app manifest?
No, it's just the bundle dialog.
Yeah.
And it's a checkbox. Right,
but the release mode, is it a true release mode, or do you need to have something so it works?
I think my editor is old actually, because I have an update available here. And I think the new version that's pushed out has like a drop down instead.
Right. So it is fixed.
Yeah, it's fixed.
By the time you're watching this video, the release checkbox is going to be a drop down, and it's like going to be a proper one. Good.
And it's also good to think about if you're using lots of texture profiles that affect like platform specific resources. You can be sure to output your resources, and after you outputted them, make sure you keep track of this is for Android, this is for iOS, stuff like that, so you know which ones to use for
The
which.
build report. I mean, it's often that when you make a build, you want to see, okay, what did they actually ship?
Yeah.
Do we have a build report that conveniently shows, okay, so this is your client, this is what went to bundles?
That's a good question, actually. That would be interesting. I think we only show the bundle size, maybe, not the excluded resources.
Yeah. So
it would be cool to see, like, this is the bundle size, these are the resources that are not in the bundle.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see. We should probably do that.
So we're gonna explore that in the next video along with the manifest, the live update manifest. So hope we got you excited about live updates, and feel free to ask us questions if something is not clear. With that, goodbye.
Thank you. It's hard to know which level to speak about it on. We'll
speak the most complex way, I think.
Mm.
Like those who don't understand it will have to watch the videos and all that.